Hi everyone, David MacDonald here, owner and founder of Vitality Fitness Calgary. Today we're going to talk about how to make your healthy food taste better. One of the biggest challenges that we have with a lot of our members, and it's something that we get a lot of feedback on, is the fact that healthy food tastes boring, it's bland. You know, when you're making that transition, it's not overly fun, okay? If you're used to eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of high calorie foods that taste better, okay, making that transition to more natural, unprocessed foods, it takes time, it takes patience, and again, like I said, it can be really boring and the food can be really bland. So there's a lot of different ways that you can enhance the flavor of healthy foods. You just have to get really creative, and you need some ideas that are going to help you with this. So the first thing we have here is using lots of spices and herbs. So spices and herbs are a great, simple, low-calorie way to enhance the flavor of your food. And the big ones we recommend are things like pepper, sea salt, garlic powder, paprika, curry powder, if you're into more spicier foods. For herbs, we'd be looking at oregano, basil, cilantro. So very low calorie spices. A lot of these spices don't even have any calories, but they really add some fun and some flavor to the food that you're going to be eating. So the way in which you can incorporate this, and the way that I would recommend, is you want to add these things to your foods pre-cooked. Okay, so you don't want to add them in after, and the reason why I recommend adding it in before you cook the food is the food, whether it be a protein or a complex carb, is going to absorb the flavor of that spice, okay, if you add it in, pre-cooked, okay, or prior to cooking the food. So for example, if you're going to have anything like chicken or salmon or maybe white fish, what I would recommend is brushing your meat with a little bit of olive oil, adding the spices on top, so whatever spice that you choose, and then cooking it in the oven for however much time you need to cook it. And what you're going to notice is this is going to really enhance the flavor of the food compared to if you added it in after or even partway through. The same thing with complex carbs. If you're eating anything like brown rice, quinoa, a baked potato, I'm trying to think what else, pasta, you want to add the spices in prior to cooking. So if you're going to be boiling some water for your brown rice or your quinoa, as you're boiling the water, add some spices and some herbs into the water, and once you bring it to a boil, you're going to have to add in the complex carbs, and what you're going to notice is the complex carb is going to really absorb those spices and herbs, and it's going to taste much better, okay, compared to if you added it in maybe at the end, when it's finished cooking or partway through. So step one, or tip number one, is to use lots of spices and herbs. The next thing is sweeten your foods naturally. So we talk about natural sweeteners, we're talking about things that occur in nature. So dried fruits, regular fruits like apples, bananas, pears, berries, and even adding in frozen fruit. It can be a great way to sweeten your foods, to add some flavor to them. The other thing is adding things in like natural maple syrup, natural honey, agave nectar, things like that. Now, where I would recommend adding these foods in and adding these flavors in would be things like oatmeal, for example. So if you're going to be eating any kind of oatmeal and you're going to be eating the dried rolled oats, that's what we always recommend, not the maple brown sugar or the cinnamon apple. There's a lot of sugar in those. We recommend adding in fruits or natural sweeteners to the dried oats. So for example, this is a recipe that I use at home. Is what I'll usually do is I'll boil my water, cook my oatmeal, and then halfway through I'll add in some frozen strawberries, and then I'll put some cinnamon in with that, and then I'll let the flavor from the fruit and from the cinnamon absorb into the oatmeal, and it tastes awesome compared to if I just had it on its own. Oatmeal is very bland, so this is a great way to liven the flavor up. So that's one way you could do the natural sweeteners. The other thing you can do is you can add them into smoothies. So you can add things in like frozen berries, maybe frozen bananas in with your protein powder and your milk. You can even add in maybe a little bit of maple syrup to your smoothie, maybe a teaspoon or a tablespoon or a little bit of honey. You could also add in maple syrup or honey to your oatmeal. So these are just great ways just to boost the flavor of your breakfast smoothies and your oatmeal. The other thing you could do with dried fruit, things like dates, raisins, dried cranberries, maybe dried blueberries, you can add them into salads. So it's another great way to enhance the flavor of your salad. And the other thing you can add into your salads that goes nicely with dried fruit is maybe adding in a little bit of light cheese. So maybe some light mozzarella, light feta. Cheese and dried fruit go very well together in a salad. So another great option for you is to add in some natural sweeteners. Okay, much better than refined sugar and artificial sweeteners. The third tip we're going to give you here is using sauces, but using healthier sauces. So a lot of sauces that are out there, you look at the ingredients, first or second ingredient is going to be sugar. Okay, so obviously we're not going to recommend that because there's refined sugars. But there are some sauces out there that are healthy, that are low calorie, and that are going to enhance the flavor of your food, and they're not going to impede your progress with your diet. So sauces that come to mind that are very healthy and that are really going to enhance the flavor of your food. Salsa sauce, probably one of the best ones. Okay. We also have hot sauce, we have mustard, even soy sauce is okay. With your soy sauce, be careful about how much you're using, and I would also use the reduced sodium. Okay, the regular soy sauce, there's way too much salt, so if you use a reduced sodium, it's great on meats like fish, salmon. It's great on complex carbs like brown rice. So another great way to boost the flavor of your foods is to use sauces, but using the healthier ones. Okay. The next thing we have is marinating. So we recommend, when, if possible, and if you have the time, marinating your meats. Okay, the benefit of marinating is that it's going to tenderize your meat, but it's also going to enhance the flavor when you cook the meat. If you guys read our last blog that we released a blog of different tips and tricks you can use to boost the flavor of your foods. One of the marinades we recommended was adding in a little bit of olive oil to a Tupperware dish, adding in a little bit of natural maple syrup, adding a little bit of mustard, okay? Marinating your meat, so whether it's chicken, salmon, whitefish, marinating it in that mixture, and then once you've done that for about 24 to 48 hours, you put it on your pan or your tray or whatever you're gonna cook it in, add some crushed pecans and pistachios, put it in the oven, cook it for whatever time frame you're gonna cook it for, and then eat it after. And it's phenomenal marinade, I can't say that word, and it's just a great way to enhance the flavor of your food. So there's different marinades out there. There's thousands of recipes you can find online. That's just one of the most simple, basic ones that we recommended. So using marinades, great way to add some flavor to your meats. Okay, there's lots of different tips and tricks out there, guys. These are the first 4 that we're going to go over with you. If you stay tuned for part 2, we're going to go over 4 more tips and tricks that you can add into your food to make it taste better and to take that bland texture away from it. Okay. The other thing that I would recommend as kind of a bonus tip is I would recommend getting a couple cookbooks. There's a lot of cookbooks on the internet, at your local bookstore that you can use that have phenomenal recipes and have very creative recipes, that takes healthy food and combines it in a way that makes it taste phenomenal. So it's another option for you there is, buying a couple cookbooks. Stay tuned for part 2. We're going to go over 4 more tips on how to make your healthy food taste better.